Hello and welcome back to another college 10K college conversation presented by Stimulus Athletic. That's right, our good friends at Stimulus Athletic. You can head over there for custom jerseys, shorts, the whole shebang. Whether you're a soccer team, football team, frisbee team, they got it all. Stimulus Athletic, head over there for custom game gear solutions. But today we are joined by Scott Wilson from UW Superior. That is four straight UMAC playoff titles, UW Superior. Scott, how are you doing?
I'm good, Ethan. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
I'm great. Thank you for being here. So, right off the top, Scott, just give us a little rundown. What year are you? How long you've been playing, and how did you ultimately land at UW Superior?
Yeah, so probably started playing around the age of 5. Just at a local park. A couple of dads put together a little club in my town. My town was only not even 2,000 people, so you can imagine there wasn't much going on. So that's kind of where I started. The club grew gradually. More and more kids from out of town were coming in, which that was cool. And then I kind of got to a stage where I needed something a little bit more professional. So I moved to a newly founded club, maybe 15, 20 minutes from my home, called AM Soccer Club, which was actually run by a former college student in the States. He played at UNC Wilmington, and then through there progressed through their academy. Had a couple trials and stuff at some pro teams. Just to see level, play a couple of my friends playing professionally that way. But worked my way through, started training with their men's first team at the age of 16. So that taught me a lot. That was a really cool experience. A little skinny 16-year-old playing against old veterans that have played. Some of them played at the professional level as well. So that was really cool. And then, like I touched on, the founder of our club had played in the States. So when I came to the end of high school and I realized that maybe playing professionally wasn't at home, he opened the window to an opportunity abroad where I could still get my degree and play soccer at a competitive level. And yeah, that's how I'm here today. So
All right, awesome, awesome. Yeah, I got to believe that was quite the experience playing with, the pros at such a young age.
yeah, it was, like I said, it was a good learning curve. There was a lot of things that I'd never seen or experienced before. Guys are late 30s. Some of them had played at Ibrox in front of 40,000 people for Rangers games when they were in the lower divisions. That was really cool. Taught me a lot of home truths as well. Kind of put me back in my space. I was a little bit of a cocky kid growing up, thinking I was God's gift at times. And I got on the end of a few big challenges and stuff. And as a defender, dealing with big old typical strikers, 6'5", throwing themselves into you, taught me a lot. But taught me a lot about myself and definitely helped me improve as a player for sure.
I think it's only natural that you were kind of cocky as a kid playing with pros. I think we'd all be there. But like we said, four straight UMAC playoff titles. So you said you've only been at UW Superior for 2 years, so you've only been part of two of them. But do you want to just touch on kind of what the culture's like at UW, where you've ultimately been able to succeed at such a high level for such a long time?
Yeah, I think that's definitely credit to the senior class that we had just now coming in. It's the most successful class out of any sport, I believe, in the school's history, to win four straight UMAC conference tournaments with three straight conference titles. And I think it's just the environment that the coaches, coaching staff, the school, and also the players set is a really competitive one. Everybody's striving to be the best versions of themselves, both on the field and with each other. And I think that's definitely filtered through. For only being here for 2 years, it was nice to adapt to that environment, and I think I brought that personal drive that the environment required. And yeah, it's also just a good environment to be in. All the boys are great. We see each other as family. We're always spending time with each other. It's not just you're on the soccer team, that's it. We're always with each other, hanging out, uh, studying, stuff like that. So yeah, it's definitely a competitive environment and probably quite a self-driven one as well.
Of course, of course. So, also this year, you were the UMAC Defensive Player of the Year, for the whole conference, Defensive Player of the Year. Did you just want to touch on that, and how much of that is also kind of the system? Obviously, you're a great defender, but kind of the system you guys are running, that puts you guys in a position to be successful.
Yeah, I think it was just a proud moment for myself, my family. It was the first individual award since coming to the States. I was second team all conference last year, but only played 10 games due to injury. Then this year I was first team all conference, and then to get that defensive player of the year was pretty cool. But obviously it's a team game, so I have to put a lot of thanks to my teammates, my outside backs, my goalkeeper, my other centre backs, um, allowing me to play the game that I play, and then Coach Mooney as well, trusting in me to play the way I do, giving me the confidence to be able to play at my best. And I just think as a team mentality, I think in conference we only conceded in one game out of 8, so that was quite an impressive record. We're all confident in each other, and that stems from the environment that we touched on earlier. So
Yeah, of course. Crazy year across all college athletics, with stuff getting moved around because of COVID, and then obviously all the regulations. And obviously that meant for you guys you couldn't go on to play in the NCAA tournament because obviously it didn't happen this year. So, do you just kind of want to touch on your daily schedule this season, and just kind of how it's changed because of COVID?
yeah, so we had so many changes, whether it was practice being shifted, especially in the winter when it's too cold to be outside, being indoors on the indoor track, just making the best of the facilities that we had, wearing masks whilst we're running, 5-6 miles at practice really sucked. But I think as a group, obviously took a bit of adjustment, running a dry indoor track at 6 a.m. in the morning. We definitely got used to it. But I think we all kind of knew why we were doing it and what the benefits were behind it. So it was just like a collective team effort to, I believe we were the only team on campus to not get paused for any COVID related stuff. So that's a credit to us, our coaching staff, for persevering and sticking to the rules. But obviously, it made it a bit more hectic in terms of schedules. Like I said, it changed all the time. Right at the start of the season, we were training in little pods. So it was maybe 4 or 5 guys, similar positions. So it'd be defenders and goalkeepers be together, midfielders together, wingers, forwards, etc. And then I think come about March time, we finally were able to get together, or February time, I should say, sorry, come together and do more team-related stuff, but we had to still limit contact. So as a defender, a bit difficult, kind of part of the game. But we gradually built our way up to where we were at. In terms of a typical day, an in-season day, usually when we're in season, so I have a job on campus, so to try and help pay the bills, stuff like that, I would usually work in the morning. I work at the gym on campus, so be in at the gym at 5:30 in the morning, usually 5 till 10, something like that. Then I would go, classes from around 10 till 2, something like that. Try and get a lift in. If it was a game day, I wouldn't lift. I kind of do an activation session. A couple of boys would go in, just body weight stuff, wake the muscles up, go for a ride on the bike, go see the trainers if needed. And that would last us till around about game time when everything's switched on. Team meetings right before, sometimes a team meal if we were allowed to, just based on social distancing, stuff like that. Team meeting, a little bit of footage of the opposition, a little bit of footage of us, footage of practice, what we were doing, what we were trying to implement, and then 2 or 3 hours before game, it's game mode. Everyone's switched on and looking forward to the game. So
Of course, right? Yeah. And obviously, that's made, like that kind of sounds like your normal schedule, just made, increasingly tough with all the regulations. And then also obviously that constant fear of, like you said, you could just get paused, because a couple of positive case, and just trying to keep everyone safe. So along with that, it was a tough year, obviously on the field, and trying to, be on the field and be successful. But also from a mental side, it was a pretty difficult year, for everybody, including, college players. So you just want to, touch on kind of maybe how soccer was able to help you through this kind of, turbulent times.
yeah, soccer was awesome with stuff like that. Like even in a regular season without COVID, just being able to leave everything uh, in your dorm room, in your house, and go into practice. You can, forget about anything else. The most important thing is practice. But especially this year, we weren't able as a team, as individuals, like we weren't having in-person classes, so you don't get that communication with other guys. Even though when we got to practice, we had to, masks were up, social distancing as much as possible. Just having that interaction with people was so much. I was like so grateful for that interaction. It definitely helped, especially I know a lot of guys, including myself, were here all summer. I couldn't go home. This is last summer, so I really lacked that interaction with other guys, and just being able to have that was definitely something you look forward to. Even if we knew coach was going to run us at night, it was still like, okay, that's going to suck, but we're still going to be with the boys, still going to get to see each other, still going to have a bit of crack. And yeah, really grateful for being a college athlete this year in that aspect, because I know a lot of other students didn't get that release from each other. So
Yeah, I definitely think, as tough as it was, I think that interaction, with the fellas out there on the field, in the gym, wherever, it was really great, and it felt almost kind of normal. So then beyond that, what was maybe the weirdest part of this year, and maybe the biggest difference from a normal year to this year?
I think one of the things, especially my first year we were here, the boys, we loved to spend time with each other, like hanging around in the locker room, whether it's playing like soccer, tennis, things like that. If we're in between classes, we'd go chill in the locker room, hang out with each other, just get to see each other. Not having the chance to be able to do that was something I found, a bit different. Like I said, we're such a close knit family. Usually a lot of us would, like I said, hang out in the buildings at school. In between classes, we kind of get into a routine of so and so's not here. Okay, we'll get a ball out. We'll play soccer, tennis. We'll play table tennis. We'll go shoot hoops, something like that. Just not being able to do that as a team was something that was difficult to deal with, something weird. And just the mask protocol, as much as I'm all for wearing masks, stuff like that. Wearing them at practice, it sucks. Whether we're indoors in the winter, like I mentioned earlier, all the running, there's nothing worse than keeping a mask on, or whether it's just little things when you're on the bus, trying to fall asleep wearing a mask. That's not the most comfortable thing to do when you're on a 5-hour bus ride. You got to keep your mask on, things like that. So that was another more annoying thing about it. But like I said, it was, in the long run, it was worth it. But at the time, yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, no, definitely. I was in the same boat, and as all college athletes were. I think wearing masks in practice, it was something that I don't think anyone was really able to get used to. And then, like you touched on, for us as well, not having a locker room was definitely kind of a weird transition that you don't think you'll miss as much until you don't have it.
Yeah, it's one of
Um,
those things that you take it for granted until it's gone, just that little bit. And even like before games, it was like you got to get changed outside, or you got to get changed in 3 classrooms at the school, and then you got to walk down. Things like that. It can interrupt your rhythm, and it didn't affect us too much, but I think it potentially for other teams probably could have.
yeah, and it didn't seem like much affected you guys yet again this year. But yeah, no, like the functional part of the locker room, but then like you mentioned as well, that like kind of bonding aspect of just like all the guys being in there, it's something that you definitely miss. So along with that, was there any like tactical shifts because of just this year being different? Did you guys have to do anything different as far as on the field, or was it pretty much the same?
I think it was for the most part the same. Our coaching staff done a really good job of uh, trying not to let it affect us, even though it affected everything we did. We tried to not let it affect us and make it as an excuse. The only thing I would say was changing was players on the bench would have to wear masks and stuff. So a couple of times they would run on with it when they didn't have to, and a little bit funny, a little bit of a joke. But I'd say the coaching staff done really well for us to not have to influence anything different.
Yeah, that is great. So you guys like kind of, because essentially, like obviously, this year did kind of it counted, but not in the sense that you could go on to the NCAA tournament or anything like that. So it was kind of an experimental time if your coach chose to use it like that, but you guys didn't really do that too much.
I mean, obviously the main goal is it's the next game. You want to win that. You don't want to think too far into it. But I know at the back of our minds, it was a bit disappointing that we couldn't compete for a national title. Like I said, it's the most successful class. I think it was an unheard secret that this team was going to be, the best one we've had in school history, and I genuinely believe we would have had a good crack at the national title. And it's unfortunate, but again, we didn't let it affect us. We knew we were grateful for the opportunity that we had, so we knew that every minute on our field could be our last. Whether it was going to be stopped by COVID or anything else, etc. That we put the work in, and we reaped the rewards. We ended up, unbeaten in conference, only conceded in one game, so it definitely shows. But yeah, it was disappointing not to have a national tournament, but like I said, we're just beyond grateful for the fact we got to play anyway. So
Yeah, definitely. Being able to, have anything is a lot better than, not playing at all. So then, just kind of in a general sense, what is something that you didn't know coming into college and being, a college athlete, and maybe you want to touch on what's kind of the best thing that you weren't quite ready for, and maybe what was the worst thing?
I think there's so many good things. That's a tough question, especially coming from an environment where we have nothing like this at home in Scotland in terms of being a college athlete. So that's an awesome, just unique experience that, again, just cannot be more thankful to have. I think just the professionalism is something that I love, in terms of the standard of practice, the standard of the schools, the standard of facilities, like that far exceeded my expectations before coming over. I was definitely a little bit naive. I was taken aback by how the standard. I was kind of expecting to be able to walk in and just create my mark straight away. I wasn't able to do that, unfortunately, but it was a humbling experience, and I learned a lot from it, and it was almost a good thing that it happened. But yeah, like I said, the facilities, the professionalism, it's awesome. I love the drive, and I also love the fact that their academics influence. You've got to keep those academics up, got to keep that GPA to be able to play. So I think I would struggle personally without that drive from athletics to keep the GPA high. If you don't play, if your GPA is not a certain level, so I would definitely struggle to keep as high a GPA as I did without athletics pushing me to make sure that I got to the best standard. And then the worst thing, I think the worst thing for me is the long bus rides kind of suck. That's
Yeah,
the one
yeah,
thing. Coming from Scotland, where growing up, the furthest I think I'd ever traveled for like a regular league game would be an hour, 45 minutes. So then my freshman year, we drove from Erie, PA to Westchester, PA, which is like a 9.5 hour bus ride, and just learning how to deal with it. Obviously, it's like you become more accustomed to it as the more you do it. But yeah, I remember that first one. Just I was naive. I didn't bring a pillow. I didn't bring a blanket. Didn't bring phone chargers. Didn't think of anything like that because I'd never done it before. So yeah, that was one of the things that was just like at the time I was like, wow, yeah, this sucks. And we lost too. So coming back, the bus ride was not fun.
yeah. That sounds awful. You kind of touched on it briefly, kind of what that transition from living and playing in Scotland to living and playing here in America. Do you want to could you go into that a little bit more, kind of what that transition's been like?
Yeah. So like I mentioned, the transition didn't go as smooth as I anticipated. Playing the level I did back home, it wasn't it wasn't the highest level, but like I said, I was playing with former pros and stuff like that, so that really helped. The transition was difficult. I actually changed position probably halfway through my freshman year. I came in as an outside back, and I think that I played that position when I moved into the men's team at home. I think because I think at heart I always knew I was a centre back, but I think to deal with the big uh, strikers and stuff back home, the coaches thought it was better for me to push on the outside just so I could, not be so much in the physical battle, and it could cost of a game if a mistake was made. So then I come in uh, playing at Gannon in PA as a fullback, and I think just the raw breed of athletes that American high schools breed is crazy compared to at home. We were running and stuff, and everyone's talking about their mile time, their 100-meter time in high school, and I'm like, we did nothing like nothing like this, and you're playing against just raw athletes, like, and it got to the point where it didn't matter what your your technical ability was. Like if this person was bigger, faster, stronger than you, and that was an adjustment I had to make. I came in at my freshman year, I think I was maybe 145. I'm sitting at like 180 now after 3.5 years. I had to make that adjustment to my game to suit the college level. But again, I wasn't used to it from playing back home, something different. Like I think somebody told me that my first start for Gannon, I was playing against a guy that ran a sub 11 seconds, 100 meters in high school. So that was completely alien to me. So yeah, that was a big transition that I had to deal with that I wasn't used to, but it was an exciting one to deal with.
In terms of the level you were playing at, as far as in Scotland and then here, would you say like they're more technical in Scotland but maybe less athletic versus here where there might be less technical but more athletic?
Yeah, I would say it was pretty similar. I think the level I played at home, one thing that affects the standard of play is definitely the pitches, especially in the winter months. Like we don't really have many turf facilities or turf facilities that can host games. So we would practice on one, but we wouldn't be able to play games on it. And I think that into the later months of the year, once we got to October, September, when the weather, started to get cold, that definitely affected the standard of it. I would definitely agree that on the most part, the American players are more athletic. I'm not saying not all of them are technical, but you can definitely tell that some of them have been able to get through to play at like certain levels based a lot on their athletic ability compared to others. And I think that's something that's just as part of the American culture, as part of American high school culture, stuff like that, that the bigger, the faster you are, the better chance you've got of making it in sport.
Speaking of soccer, make sure to check out Talkin' Flock. That's right, a new podcast brought to you by 10,000 Pitches. Every Monday afternoon, we got J-Ball and Rob breaking down all things Forward Madison. The first episode just went live last week. We had head coach Carl Craig on talking all things Loons in their first game. Or not Loons, Mingos. So make sure to check that out, Talking Flock. And if you like what you're hearing and you want to support the pod, make sure to check out Shop 10. That's the number 10kpitches.com to get all the official merchandise for 10,000 Pitches. All right, we're back here. We're back here with Scott. So Scott, now we're getting into the meat and potatoes, why people tuned in, the heavy hitter questions. So off the top here. Do you want to talk about, your nastiest on-field moment, a highlight, maybe it was one of your teammates, just something that sticks out in your head as a major highlight?
So it was probably the best and nastiest one rolled into one, probably in a space of 5 minutes. It would have been, we were playing a team called Glenrothes Strollers, one of our like big rivals growing up. They were, 15 minutes away. Me and this one kid, I'll name drop him, see if he ever comes across this, but his name was Cal Marshall, played center mid for them, and we definitely respected each other in terms of he was a good player, I was quite a good player, but we when the minute we walked on the field, we did not like each other. And this one game we were playing, and I think we were getting beat like 3 or 4-0. It was one of those games, and I get the ball on the edge of our penalty box, and he comes steamrolling into me, and for some reason, I still do it to this day, but this is probably one of the first times I've ever done it. He comes steamrolling in me, and I just shout Megs, roll my studs over the ball and meg him. And there's a decent number of people there. Everyone's oh look, you got done, like stuff like that. Kind of a funny thing, kind of a stupid thing to do, honestly, on my part, because we were getting beat, but it was just one of those things. So then probably I was probably about 13 or 14 at the time, maybe not even that old. So then 2 or 3 minutes later, while we're like goal kick, trying to play it from the back again, Callum comes running down to me, and he sized me down with a tackle probably about waist height, wraps his legs around me, and we're playing on one of those muddy pitches I talked about earlier. And I just remember again, smack down in the grass, mud everywhere, mud cuts everywhere, and he just looked at me after it. He was like, "Don't ever do that again." And then from that moment on, we kind of, every time I would see him coming through, we'd always talk about that moment. And it was definitely one of those moments where it was like, yeah, probably shouldn't do that when we're losing 4 or 5-0, especially to him. He'll admit it himself. He was a bit of a hothead growing up. I don't even think he got a card, or maybe he got a yellow for it, but yeah, I remember it to this day, just calling him out, calling Megs, and then not even 5 minutes later, again, we would call it nailed to the ground. So that was one of those moments, I would say.
Yeah, that's quite the moment. Especially at that age. That's nuts. So like you said, you kind of played in the pro ranks. Who's the most famous person you played with, or maybe maybe famous, whatever person you've played with or against in your time?
I've been lucky enough. I played with a lot of guys that are around the pro scene just now in Scotland. I never actually got to play with this guy, but we trained together a couple of times. And it was Josh Sargent, the men's US national team. So when we were he's a year younger than me, I believe. So he was probably about 2015, 2014, something like that. He was with the US Roma kind of GPS camp, and they came to Scotland to play against our club. And we done like a joint session for a couple of days because they had Roma coaches. So yeah, that was kind of cool. You could see from then he was, this fast, strong kid again, brought through the American system, but technically was unreal. So yeah, it was kind of cool to play against him. But then for again, growing up through my club, there was a player called Louis Appert, a Scottish guy to French parents. He now plays professionally in Scotland for Dundee United. He's called up to the Scotland under-21s team as well, but because of COVID, he never got to do it. But yeah, he was one of my good friends in high school. We both played for our state at high school together. So me and him got quite close through that stuff. So he's probably one of the best ones I played with. But yeah, Josh Sargent, you could tell at one point was just head and shoulders above the rest.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. That you got to do that at such a young age. Like you kind of briefly touched on it, but before you landed at UW Superior, you were in Pennsylvania. You were playing there, so you've seen a good part of America in your time. Do you have a favorite region or part of America? And keep in mind when answering this, we are a Midwest based podcast, so tread lightly. But do you have a favorite part?
Okay, so I'll plug the Midwest here. There is a couple of times my girlfriend and I have gone up the North Shore, Palisade Head, Gooseberry Falls. Like, I can't deny it. The views are breathtaking. However, I visited my girlfriend's family in Siesta Key in March, and it was my first time in Florida. And I think it was exactly what was needed. I needed a break. I needed out of Wisconsin. So just being there where they stay is absolutely beautiful. So I'm going to plug that and say Siesta Keys, Florida was my favorite place so far. But like I said, Palisade Head, Gooseberry Falls up there, that was gorgeous. But maybe in 85-degree weather, it may be toppling it. But I know I'm in the wrong part of the world if I'm wanting 85-degree weather in March.
Yeah, you definitely you're a little north. But yeah, no, it's a tough ask that Wisconsin would ever beat out Florida. But all right, so now we're really getting into it. So from being from UW Superior, you got your mascot's the Yellow Jackets, which from my limited knowledge of I guess like insects, I don't know, bugs, they're the same thing as bees. So we're gonna be doing a little bit of a bee draft, or we like to do, or bee bracket rather. We like to do brackets here, and we got a bee bracket coming up. So it's 6 total, and we'll see what the best bee is. So up number 1, we have the Honey Nut Cheerio bee, the mascot for Honey Nut Cheerios, versus beans. Just normal beans, black beans, pinto beans, whatever beans, but beans. Which one advances?
I'm going to say beans purely because when I was younger, we would have this meal and it was called cheesy beano, where you would get a piece of toast. You'd have Heinz baked beans, pop it on the toast, put some cheese on top, and you put it in the oven for a couple of minutes. and that was probably one of the first meals I ever made. And uh, yeah, good old college meal, healthy-ish. My dad ever came home from work, he's like, "What'd you make?" And I was like, "Cheesy beano." He's like, "Okay, good for you. Now you got to start and learn something to cook something proper." So we're gonna say beans on that one.
So yeah, I've heard that over in Europe, beans on toast is a thing that you guys eat. I can't imagine eating beans on toast, but you're telling us it's pretty good.
Oh, it's different class, different class.
I'm just gonna take your word for it. I don't think I'm ever gonna put beans on toast. I'm not a big beans guy, but anyways, we're advancing here. Next matchup, we got the B movie, the classic B movie versus spelling bees, just like your childhood spelling bees. Which one are you taking?
It's gonna have to be the B movie, Ethan, because I remember as a kid cheating on a spelling bee from my class in primary school, so equivalent to elementary school. I cheated so well that I won, and the winner had to go to represent the school at like the state equivalent county spelling bee. And I am not a good speller, hence having to cheat. I kind of suck at spelling, honestly. So a day later, I had to go and own up to my mistake of cheating in the spelling bee to my teacher, getting in trouble for it. But I figured it was better to get in trouble from Mrs. Mackay was her name, than embarrassing myself in front of parents, other schools, than doing that. So I'm going to pick the B movie too, and it's a solid movie as well. We've seen it on the bus a couple of times, so can't complain. But yeah, I'm not a fan of spelling bees.
Yeah, no, spelling bees are the worst. We have like an equivalent here, obviously, and they're just the worst. I hate them. I can't spell either. But you didn't want to like take the risk and maybe got some easy words at the county spelling bee. You couldn't do it.
No, that was how much I knew I was in trouble. I was always competitive, still am to this day. I wanted to win at everything, and this was no different. I just didn't realize how well I was doing on it. Um, so yeah, I wasn't taking the humiliation of losing it for the school, because I know we had a couple of brainiacs in our class too that probably deserved it a lot more than I did. So yeah, that's my answer for that one for sure.
Yeah, it sounds like you made the right call there. B movie advances. All right, next up, we are doing normal bees, so just your everyday typical honeybee, whatever bees, versus Sir Thomas Beecham, who was a conductor in the 1900s. And there you go. Which one advances?
I am gonna go. I've got to go for regular bees, being a yellow jacket. Being a yellow jacket, they're one of the family. So I think if I did not say bees, I think the whole athletic department in the school would become calling for my throat. So we're gonna go with bees because we're yellow jackets over here.
That's a great answer. I'm sure you don't know Sir Thomas Beecham either. I know nothing about him. I found him on Google last night. I just thought he had a great name, and
Oh,
I
that's
couldn't
it's
not
an
include
awesome
him.
name.
It like imagine just like your day to day life being Sir Thomas Beecham and a conductor. Great profession, great name.
Yeah.
Um, but you probably made the right call as far as being the Yellow Jackets. So, moving on here, we're gonna go the three way. All three that advanced are pit up against each other. So we have beans versus the B movie versus normal bees in the championship round, because I messed this bracket up and didn't put in a fourth. But so we're just going three ways. Which one's taking the crown as far as the best B?
So I think we're gonna eliminate beans. We're gonna make it a final two, just because the cheesy beanos that I talked about, I haven't yet found Heinz beans in the States to put on a cheesy beano. So from the American side, it's gonna go down. That's gonna go off. So final two between the B movie and actual bees. Given the plot of the B movie, I think we can see that bees are essential, and the fact that I'm a yellow jacket, I think bees have got to win hands down, hands down.
there you have it. Normal Bs take home the crown as the best B. Um, so if you were in Scotland doing this bracket, which I don't know why you would do this specific bracket in Scotland, would Beans advance? Would they win it all? Because you got the Haynes beans.
Yeah, I think it would have to be a close one because I, it definitely wouldn't be Yellow Jackets because my soccer team that I support, his logo is actually a yellow jacket. Oh, the soccer team I support, one of their biggest rivals has a yellow jacket in their logo. And my dad would be sitting on my shoulder saying, "You can't say that they're your favorite because that means you support Alloa, and we don't like Alloa." So, yeah, it probably would have been Beans in all honesty, or maybe the B maybe might have snuck it honestly, but definitely a tougher one to throw up if I was back home for sure.
I understandably, you don't want to support the wrong side. But there you have it. Normal Bs here in America advance. They're the best B, according to a real Yellow Jacket in Scott Wilson, a real Yellow Jacket. Um, uh, so uh, so lastly here, your season's over at Superior. Um, where are you playing this summer? Where can we find you on the field this summer?
So I signed for Duluth FC in Duluth, Minnesota for the summer. Really excited about it. Was meant to play there last summer, but COVID canceled the NPSL season. So I've had a week off. Then we start practice on Sunday. So super excited. Get to meet the boys and stuff in a couple of days. Um, from what I know, guys are going to come in from good schools all across the country. We got guys from Florida, Texas, out east, out west. A couple of British boys coming in, so it'd be nice to hear some local accents. And the team's successful too. We want to first obviously want to clinch the NPSL regional title, and then advance as far as we want to go in the national tournament. And there's definitely an objective is to just go as far as we can. Obviously, we'll take each game as we come. Um, but I'm excited to see how far we can go with this talented group of players.
Yeah, of course. So there you guys go. Duluth FC. Scott Wilson will be out there. Scott, thank you so much for coming on. Once again, congrats on the Defensive Player of the Year, winning your fourth straight UMAC title. And yeah, thanks again for coming on.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. You guys are doing some awesome work and covering players and clubs in this area. So it's greatly appreciated on our end. I know that for sure.
All right, everyone. Thank you again for tuning in. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe down below. We'll have links for you to the store to Talking Flock down the subscription description. Thanks again, guys.